is going, and your timer is going down. Have a good show.
Welcome to Angela Jane Presents. Today this is going to be a couple of takes to get this announcement. Take one, so this is how I cut out. So, welcome to Angela Jane Presents. I am here with a very special artist, hands-on craft, and I have no idea what you do. Okay, pronounce it for me. You're
my
potter?
I'm a potter.
A potter. So, a porcelain potter.
Yes, specifically, but mostly just potter.
A potter that works with porcelain.
Yes.
Okay. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sarah, who is a potter. Introduce yourself.
I'm Sarah Miller. I've been doing pottery for 24 years now. I started with my first ceramics class in January of 2000, so it's really easy to do the math on how long I've been a potter. I started with a stoneware that was really gritty and leaving like lines where I almost bleeding in my hands after so many tries. So I went for softer and softer clay until I got to porcelain, and I throw thin enough to show off the best part of the porcelain, being its translucency. So I'm very happy just staying with my clay that feels like cream cheese.
Oh, nice. Okay. What are the basic tools you use in making pottery?
Water is a big one. So this is my water bowl. It sits in my wheel splash pan, and then the sponge that goes to dip into it is spread onto my clay, because the water reduces the friction and allows you to pull the pieces up. And then for shaping, you've got your silicone rib because it bends and you can help shape the curves that you want on the pieces. If you can't get it quite right with your fingers, you can help have a little bit with that. And then because this is a greenware piece, and so when I was throwing this, there was a big old bit down here, and I used this edge as it's spinning to cut off part of that to trim it so I don't have to spend so much time trimming. And then the pin tool also for helping trim off and for spinning and taking on the rim here to make the rim all even. And then the wire tool for cutting things. This is the most dangerous tool we've got, because so you take it like floss and then cut it underneath the piece to cut it off the wheel. So those are the throwing tools. The trimming tools are these, because once you got it thrown and it's dry, you turn it upside down and you trim it to create, because when it's wet, it needs more clay to help it be stable, but that isn't quite the profile you want it when it's finished. So you use this to help flatten it, and as it's spinning on the wheel again, you're using the sharp edges of the metal to flatten it and to cut out a little bit in the middle, and then to cut down on the bottom to make this profile a little bit better. This is one of the tools. These are listed as handle pullers because you take them through clay and pull handles this way. But that's not how I do my handles. So I use them for trim because they're the right angle for trimming on my piece. I've got big and small. So those are my basic tools. And then once it's done, I take the pin tool and scratch my potter's mark in the bottom. So that's how you create a piece, and that's how you use my tools.
What do you enjoy most about making pottery?
I kind of like the feel of the clay in my hands. It's playing in the mud for adults. So it's kind of got this slippery, muddy texture, and then to see something form underneath my hands into sort of the shape I was trying to make. So if you want to feel the clay, this is um, this is the porcelain. It's a clay. It looks like and feels like any other. It's just what makes up it. What the chemical composition is what's different than the stoneware that a lot of other people throw with. So it has something called kaolin, which allows it to go translucent in it. And then once it's finished, seeing people buy and use my work. As a functional potter, having somebody use my work and saying, hey, that bowl I got from you, that was perfect for this thing, or that little cup, I use it every day for taking my espresso or whatever. I mean, to have people come back and say, that was so cool, I use it all the time, I need to get another one for my friend who likes it, or whatever, that really makes me happy to know that my work is useful.
What pottery items have you made over the years?
When I first started throwing, it took me forever. Bowls, I make a ton of bowls. Bowls, they're easy. Bowls.
What are bubbles?
Bowls.
Oh.
Bowls. Bowls make, are sort of the easiest thing to make. I make tiny, tiny, tiny bowls and I used to make really big things, so I've made pitchers and large stuff, but they were really thick. And so when I started throwing thin, I started throwing small. So I've made lots of tiny cups and tiny bowls, and made 1 or 2 plates, but they're hard because all pottery starts as a cylinder. You have to pull it up, and then you flatten it out and pull it out to make a plate, and I have a hard time doing that. I've made vases. I recently made a couple sake bottles.
Oh, cool.
I was commissioned to make a 1/2 liter sake bottle. That was like the largest thing I've made in like 15 years. So that was kind of a struggle, but it came out really cool, and my customer was happy with it. So, but bowls, it's a lot of bowls.
What would you say to someone who was interested in making pottery?
You don't have to have a wheel. There's large traditions of hand building, both historically and modern, and hand building is not just for kids, though it's a good way to start. The thing that got me interested in was I was a kid at a park festival in Tualatin, and like the local art thing came by and had a bunch of clay, and then we made some pinch pots and I think some coil pots, and I had a lot of fun, and I was looking for time to take more pottery, and I didn't get a chance to until I was in college, and then I got the chance to try the wheel. But there's all sorts of stuff you can make that by making with slabs and things that you cannot do on a wheel. So if you want to play with clay, get some clay and play with the clay, because there's things, it's just fun.
How many years have you actually put into making pottery?
I've been making pottery since 2000, so 24 years at this point in time. There have been months where I don't throw, but I don't think there's been a year that's gone by that I haven't done some.
Wow.
So,
How would you recommend starting out to someone?
taking a class, whether it's through your school, because they can give you the techniques, and more importantly, they'll have access to kilns for you to fire your work and get it finished. So,
So taking a class.
taking a class, because the class fees don't just cover the instruction; they cover the materials and the firing. And unless you have a kiln, and kilns are hard and expensive, and depending on the type of kiln, difficult to do if you don't know what you're doing. So let the teacher fire it for you is a good way to go.
Okay, I noticed that you've got several different
Stages of
stages. Yes. So first stage, it starts out as
greenware. This is
wait, clay.
It starts out as clay.
Yeah.
The clay here, and you throw that It's malleable. It's clay. This is my porcelain, so it's thinner and it's not as gritty. Do you want to feel the porcelain?
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that you want to.
Oh, that's like putty.
Yeah, putty, cream cheese, that kind of.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and it's not gritty.
Right.
Yeah, like
right?
with sand.
There's no grit in it.
Nice.
That is the point of porcelain, is that it has no grit to it.
Oh, nice.
So from the clay to you make greenware, and this is a trimmed piece, and it's been knocked around so you can see there's a little chip. But I can take a wet sponge and smooth that out, and then it'll get fired. So this is basically your dried mud. If I drop this, it shatters like dried mud.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to do that because I want to fire this eventually. So then it goes into the kiln for a first fire called bisque, which gets all the water and everything that could be combined as chemical water out. So that gets up to about between 1600 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it becomes bisqueware. And this is a piece of bisqueware that has had a tumble, so it's broken, so it's good for that. But it makes it's sort of like your terracotta flower pots are fired to bisqueware, so it's still porous, but it's not quite as fragile as the dried mud. And then you wax the bottom and you glaze it. You wax the bottom so that the glaze doesn't stick to it, so it doesn't stick to the shelf when you glaze fire it.
So that's 1, 2, 3. Now number 4.
This is Then you're on to this piece has been twice fired. It was cut when it was green, and then it was fired intentionally on its side, so it's gotten out of round. But it was cut to show how my walls are, the thickness to which I normally throw. So you can see how thin the
So that's a sample piece.
That's a sample piece, and it was deliberately fired, but it has been what we would call glaze fire. It was been second fired, and you can hear it different.
Oh, it's duller.
Yeah.
Not as tingy.
Yeah. And so this piece separated in its firing. I don't know if you can see not sure. I made a hole when I trimmed it on accident, so I made the hole bigger to make it a flower pot. And then somehow it separated in its firing. But it shows you how thin I throw.
Nice.
And it makes a slightly different too. And these are just glaze fired pieces, and these are like off the shelf that I would sell, and it makes a belting kind of thing. So yeah, that's porcelain makes that. Dark glaze here is not thin enough to be translucent. This one is. You light a candle and it goes through. It's really pretty. You can kind of see the light shadows going through it. But those are the stages. Once you fire it to its second firing, it is ready to use. Besides using them, I like putting candles in them and looking at them glowing in the dark, because it's.
And you use it for
food, candles, water.
So you use glaze that is
food safe, yeah.
Food safe glaze.
Yeah. Because I like to be able to use it, and that's partly why we fire high fire, is because lead doesn't even come into firing at the temperature we fire. Our high fire glaze fire is about 2381 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cone 10. Lead vaporizes somewhere around 2000. It's a flux that's like 1600.
Yeah.
And then it just vaporizes and melts out of the kiln and would make a big mess, and so it doesn't even enter into our.
So there's no lead in any of these.
In any of these, no.
Wow.
So yeah, they're ready to well. But these have been handled enough that you'd want to wash them, but otherwise you could put food in it and eat straight out of it.
Oh, cool. Did you start out with any mentors?
I did, because I learned from Mark Terry over at George Fox. He was my pottery professor for that one semester, and then as an alumni, I was auditing the class and still hanging around, and for 4 or 5 years, or 3 or 4 years, and then we moved home and sort of just further explored on our own.
Oh, cool.
So, but Mark Terry was the one who started me throwing and we do wood fire occasionally, which is another type of kiln that is completely fed with wood. Gets up to between 2,300 and 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, where the wood ash melts as part of the glaze.
Oh, cool.
And because that was part of his class, it instilled a love of that kind of thing in me. And so we have a small wood kiln in our backyard that we can fire in a weekend and do 50 to 100 pieces in. Well, depending on whether they're my pieces, which are these small ones, or the bigger ones of my husband's, because my husband also does the pottery with me. So.
Well, thank you for sharing your craft.
Sure. Any other explanations you want, or?
Do you have any questions
Yeah,
that
I'm
you
asking-
want to answer?
Yeah,
I'm going to throw that in.
Well, there is my favorite story on how my husband became a potter as well. If you want to hear that story.
Is he okay with you saying this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has heard and told this story too.
Okay.
He hears me tell this story frequently. So I was taking pottery my final semester at George Fox, and I was having a hard time centering the clay on the wheel, because trying to get the clay in the exact center of the spinny wheel is a trick. Once you learn that, the rest is just practice. But trying to figure out how to get there is a trick. And so I was telling him about how hard of a time I was having, and he said, "Oh, just use centrifugal force, dear. It's so easy. It's physics." And I'm going, "It doesn't work like that, honey." And he insisted, and so the only way to prove that centrifugal force didn't work like that was to take him into the pottery studio and sit him down and have him try it. 30 seconds later, the words every wife loves to hear came out of his mouth of, "You're right, dear. It doesn't work like that." 5 minutes later, he was sort of as frustrated and was trying to figure it out, but having fun. So I've been a potter a month longer than him. But he does all of our mixes, all of our glazes, and does all of our firing. And he's gotten into the science of the pottery more than I have. I just play with the mud and make pretty things and say, "Hey, that color, that glaze, I want that on this piece." He's the one who's responsible for mixing the glaze so that I can have the pretty colors on my pieces.
Oh, nice.
So it's sort of a team effort with us. Yeah, but the porcelain, he tries to occasionally throw my porcelain when he runs out of clay, and he can't do it quite as well. And I do something called throw off the hump, which is I center a larger piece and make a tiny piece and cut it off, and then go down and make another one and cut it down and stuff. He tries that, and it doesn't work well, and he doesn't understand how I do that, but I've been doing that for 20 years, so I have practice. But so we each have our strengths, and even if somebody else were to try to do my style of pieces, it wouldn't quite look right.
It's got your signature.
Because it's the way my hands work. My hands don't work the same way as your hands work. So one of our favorite glazes, I don't have any here on this table, is a copper green that a professional potter from Portland came in at George Fox when we were still there and wrote his green glaze recipe on the board and said, "You will do different things with it than I do, so here's my signature green glaze. Have fun."
Sweet.
So even though we're using his glaze, I do different. He makes like Japanese lantern things. I make medieval sort of inspired functional ware, bowls that are like Roman style, and don't look the same because I use a porcelain and he uses like a stoneware or something. And even when I had a friend who was making similar style lanterns, her lanterns were different than his. And even though they were glazed, you could tell in the same glaze, you could tell them apart. So every person who does pottery is not going to recreate exactly the same way.
You have a lighter?
Bright light.
Oh, there's a bee in there.
Oh, fun, dead bee. This was out at a camping event over the weekend. That candle is also dead because we let them burn until they burnt out Saturday night.
Oh, nice. Usually I go, oh, thank you for coming. There you go, have the handshake. Without further ado, Sarah Miller.
Yeah, that's why this timing was great for this, was because
I'm so glad you made the time to come out and share with our community television here.
Sure. I like talking pottery and the historical influences and things of that. But I also really like just playing in the mud and showing off what I can do with mud. I have some pictures. I think I have some on our Facebook page, or if not, I will put some up here soon of the candles glowing through. And we're doing firings this weekend.
Yeah.
So we're doing a bisque firing on Friday, which is the first stage. And then we're glazing on Saturday and doing a glaze fire on Sunday. So we will have new work, and it will be put up on our Facebook page.
And so this TV show is actually on my YouTube.
Okay.
And next thing you know, it's on everybody's TV. I went over to my friend's house, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Makeup artist. I need a makeup artist. Quick. Wait, ceramics? Can you make a mask for me?
You could take the dust here and make a porcelain mask. It would really dry out your skin because too much time in the porcelain and my hands dry out.
But you combine the spinning and the lanolin.
Oh.
You know, put the sheeps, raw sheeps.
Yeah.
They can work this out, combining the two, see what we come up with. An
yeah.
accident, actually. Yeah. Okay, I'll let Phil turn that off. If you want to pose in front of it and see how it goes, it's like